Hey everyone, it's Steph, and today we're going to be talking about another disabilities video. This time we're going to be talking about fictional books that feature characters with hearing impairments, either total hearing loss, partial hearing loss. This is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, and it's something I think that we should talk about more. I anticipate that in the future I'll probably find more books with different disabilities, perhaps make another video as time goes on, depending on how many good books I can find with these impairments. So without further ado, let's talk about books with hearing impairments. First, we have Sons of Blackbird Mountain. This is by Joanne Viskoff. This story features Avin, who is a widow living in Norway looking for somewhere to work. So what she ends up doing is moving across the Atlantic Ocean to America, where she can work with her husband's cousin's family. So her husband's cousins are three brothers. They live in this home, kind of similar to like the Waltons. They live in like this mountainous region, but that's where the similarities between these three brothers and the Waltons end. So the three brothers are all young men who have been working on this farm, and it's been thriving. Particularly, they have an orchard with apples, and that's their main source of income, is selling the apples and producing ciders. We meet these three brothers, and it ends up sort of forming a love triangle. So this love triangle features Hakan. I don't know if that's how we say his name. They all have Norwegian sounding names, so forgive me if I'm not sounding these out perfectly. We have Hakan, who is the youngest of the three brothers. He's very sure of himself and very flirty and very confident in the way that he interacts with Avin and gets to know her throughout this story. And then we have the middle brother, whose name is Thor. Thor is deaf. So Thor has to navigate this huge property, this huge orchard. I want to say we're like mid-1800s. Definitely not the technology that we have today. They have to kind of find different ways to communicate with him when they're far apart, if they try to wave or get like the light reflecting off of something that they're holding in order to get his attention, or they of course have to run out to the fields and go find him. There ends up being problems later on in the story because they have a rivalry with a nearby family. The three brothers are trying to stand their ground, stand up for what's right, and they end up having run-ins that cause issues for the family, not to mention if Thor is apart from them, how can they communicate what's going on to him, keep him safe, and keep the rest of the family safe in the house? So there are definitely things that come along that present issues. The preface of the story kind of shared something I hadn't heard before, which was that ASL, for those of you who don't know, ASL is American Sign Language, if my memory serves me correctly, excludes articles like a, the. Because it excludes these articles, the author wanted to correctly narrate his dialogue in a way that was appropriate for ASL. And she wanted to definitely stress before the story started that the way he's communicating is not simplified, it's not babied, he's not lacking in intelligence. It's simply the way that his language to express himself enables him to communicate with other people, which I thought was an interesting differentiation. I'm not super educated in ASL, I'd love to learn more about it. But for someone who, like me, who wasn't aware of that, that was like something for me to learn. I also enjoyed seeing glimpses of him in flashbacks from going to school as a child, learning in an environment that has not been as well adapted as schools today have been adapted for those with hearing impairments of varying degrees. Before reading this book, I had only ever read about hearing loss in a contemporary setting, so to see it in a historical setting and see what it was like at the time, as well as what the education system was like for those who had hearing loss, it was really interesting to me. I do believe there are references to Alexander Graham Bell, whose wife was deaf, so kind of having that ability to see what kind of things in history occurred around the time of this story, as well as see the impact from that point in history to the trajectory up now. It just gives you a neat perspective, and it kind of helps me learn something new. So I enjoyed the setting, I enjoyed the story. It took me a few chapters to get into it, but like once I was into it, I was like really interested in it. So just wanted to share that. If you're interested in historical fiction with hearing loss, then this might be a book for you. The next book we have that we're going to talk about is Five Flavors of DUM. And this is a story in a high school setting about a girl whose name is Piper. She is the oldest of three children. Her youngest sister has severe hearing loss, and Piper is one of only two deaf students in the entire high school. Her best friend, the other deaf student, ends up moving away with her family, which leaves Piper feeling isolated. She wants to go to this prestigious college for the deaf. Her parents are going to help her through college. What ends up happening is her younger sister qualifies for a cochlear implant to enable her to hear. So her parents end up taking her money for college and spending it on their youngest child for her cochlear implants, meaning that Piper is now the only one in her family who is without her hearing. And then she has no college fund, so she ends up looking for some sort of revenue producing activity. She ends up working with a band full of high school students, and they are trying to look for paying gigs. Band members say, okay, listen, Piper, we will give you a cut of the money that we make, but we need to have a paying gig in the next 30 days. If that works out, then you can stay with us, be our manager, and you can get paid. So then she's highly motivated to earn this money. Piper is not very interested in music, so she's kind of learning to kind of open herself up, try new things, and connect with others socially in school, and also kind of open herself up to her family so that she can kind of come out of her shell and she can allow herself to be seen by others. So it's kind of like a growing into your own skin, kind of finding your own identity, and it's a great story. I enjoyed it, and I thought it was really neat for representation of hearing loss, as well as just a high school student trying to navigate their life and figure out where they want to go. So I enjoyed it, and definitely recommend checking out if you are looking for a story with hearing loss. The next story we have is a graphic novel. This is called Algaephobic by Cece Bell, and I love this graphic novel for many reasons, but Cece Bell is a deaf woman herself, so she created this graphic novel about her experience growing up as a child with a hearing aid FM system, going through school. She ends up going to a hearing school where she's the only one with a hearing aid. She ends up having this large hearing aid that she has to wear, so she already feels like she looks different from the other kids, plus the hearing aids behind her ears. And her teacher has a lanyard with a microphone system in order to transmit her voice anywhere in the classroom to the hearing aids and the hearing system that Cece wears as a student. Anyone who's a teacher or has been in a classroom environment knows that we still have these today, and it benefits students of different levels of hearing loss and enables them to be a part of the lesson and have an equal opportunity to learn. Cece describes in this story what it's like for her to be able to hear things the other kids can't as the teachers move around the room, or sometimes when they walk outside the room and have discussions the kids aren't supposed to be privy to. So she kind of equates that to a superpower and tries to find her own identity as she comes into her own and embraces her identity as a deaf woman in the world and what that means for her and what she's able to do that others can't do, and trying to find her way socially as well as just where she fits. I love one of the things that she talks about. She would watch TV with her family prior to the days of closed captioning. So she talks about watching this whole thing going on, and her family members would laugh on the couch around her watching the TV. She wouldn't know what was being said. She couldn't follow along. But she attributes that to her creativity because she would watch TV shows, have no clue what was being said, so she would make up all these fantastic stories, and it created this brilliant imagination that she has, which comes across so clearly in this graphic novel that I just, whether you have hearing impairments or not, I just think there's something for everybody to love of this story. So definitely check it out if you're interested. Next on this list, we have Moses Goes to a Concert. This is part of a series of children's books, which I absolutely love and highly recommend. Moses is a fictitious character in a deaf school who is going on a field trip with his class. And what ends up happening, I want to say he's like 3rd or 4th grade, if my memory serves me correct, in the story. He and his class from his deaf school travel to go visit an orchestra. They are able to go attend the concert. I believe some of them have balloons in their laps to feel the sound waves coming off of the instruments while they're in the audience. But then afterwards, they're able to go onto the stage, interact with all the musicians, interact with all the instruments, and kind of feel the vibrations from the instruments and have an immersive musical experience. despite their hearing loss, which I so love. So we get to see these children experiencing music, being a part of it, creating music themselves, and we get to see how music doesn't exclude anyone of any ability. Everyone can partake in music making experiences in some way. One other component to this book, which is really creative, they had the text there so you can follow along the story, and they also have pictures of the American Sign Language hand motions. The author consulted with American Sign Language specialists or professionals to verify that these symbols and images are appropriate for American Sign Language in general and also appropriate for the context of the book and correctly kind of translated and portrayed. So I think it's a really neat tool to use. I've used it with young people before and they really seem to enjoy it. Just one thing, if you're going to read this book and you're going to share it with other students or young children, I definitely recommend sharing it in small groups because it's hard for a large group to see all the different hand motions that are printed on the page, but so good. I've not read any other books like this or encountered other books like this. There are a few others in the series, but the concert one I think is by far my favorite. So definitely check it out if you're interested. Last but not least, a book by one of my favorite authors is Tamara Alexander. This is a story that features a character with hearing loss that is coming on, and to talk too much about this character or about how this character fits into the plot is definitely a spoiler, so I don't want to give away too much, but I do love that this story talks about the juxtaposition of music and hearing loss. So somewhat relevant in that capacity to Moses Goes to a Concert, where we're seeing how are the two relevant to one another. I just love that we're talking about music and a historical setting, and also seeing how the resources that are available for people with hearing loss or people with varying degrees of hearing impairments, what were the resources like in the mid to late 1800s, and what does it mean for someone who's experiencing those symptoms? How does that mix in and tie in with their experience of music in terms of the overall plot of the story? So definitely, if you're even remotely interested in checking out any of these books, I highly recommend them. If you have any other books that you can think of that have hearing loss in them, I'd love to hear about them. Please comment below. If you've read any of these books, please let me know. There are a few other books I've read with hearing loss that I decided not to include in this list for one reason or another. My main reason for excluding some of them is because I didn't love them. I know that they exist, but I'm not going to spend all day rattling on about lists of books with hearing loss if I didn't even really enjoy them enough to want to recommend them. So I definitely want to keep my eye out for more books with hearing loss, and I know there's some nonfiction books on my TBR with hearing loss as well. So I will keep you updated if I can think of some more books with hearing loss. And let me know in the comments below if you have read any of the books with hearing loss and what you thought of them. And let's keep this conversation going. So thanks so much for watching this video. I look forward to making more videos and chatting about books with you soon. Hope you find some books that bring some sunshine to your day. And I will chat with you guys soon. Thanks for watching.